Hi, everybody. I'm Lori Gambacorda.
And I'm Lisa Byrne, and we're the founders of E.P.I.C, Empowering People, Inspiring Community. And this is an episode of E.P.I.C Experts Interviews.
And today we are honored to have as our guest Oley Smith, practitioner of Chinese medicine and teacher of Qigong. Welcome, Oley.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm grateful to have you here today. And can you tell us a little bit about open heart acupuncture?
Sure. Well, it's my acupuncture clinic, and in the West, I think everyone is familiar with acupuncture, but I always like to say acupuncture is under the umbrella of Chinese medicine, and so Chinese medicine itself is a full system of medicine, a system of assessment and diagnosis, and includes not only treatment with acupuncture, but treatment with Chinese herbs, with diet and lifestyle counseling, and it's very broad. So even though it's called open heart acupuncture, I think it's probably more like open heart Chinese medicine. And in the tradition, there are different traditions of acupuncture and Chinese medicine. There's some 20th century constructs like TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, and there's 5-element acupuncture. And if I have to give myself like a name brand or a trademark, I typically refer to it as classical Chinese medicine, because the school that I went to was founded by somebody who actually coined the phrase classical Chinese medicine to kind of distinguish it from just a straight TCM perspective or a straight 5-element perspective, and really just talking about engaging with the medicine as it existed for thousands of years, as opposed to just its most recent incarnations in the last couple decades.
Can you go a little more in depth as to what services that you offer?
Sure. Well, I guess I also like to say, in China, Chinese medicine is called medicine. So I think I offer services for pretty much anything. Anybody who would like to come in, whether they're dealing with a health issue or whether they're just wanting to optimize health. They say in the classics of Chinese medicine, one of the classics, they talk about 3 levels of medicine. And so there's the first level, which is treating symptoms, treating disease. There's the second level, which is maintaining health and wellness. And then there's the third level, which is called nourishing destiny. And so I feel like, Chinese medicine offers a way of engaging on any one of those levels. And so again, I think anybody who wants alleviation from symptoms, we can do that. If they want to maintain optimum functioning, we can do that. And if they want to go deeper and really even just kind of explore what it even means to nourish one's destiny, we can do that too.
Could you speak a little bit more then to what each one of those looks like if somebody was to come seeking one of those services?
Sure. Well, and I guess that's maybe another aspect. One of the things I really appreciate about just the classical Chinese worldview in general is that there are methodologies, like whether those are methods of acupuncture, methods of herbal therapy, methods of diet and lifestyle, Qigong or eating. But then those would be the forms, but then there are these formless principles that inform each one of those. And so I think it's more about really understanding and engaging with those principles. And so again, someone may come in and we may do an acupuncture treatment and we may prescribe them some herbs, and that may be for treatment of symptoms or maintenance of wellness or nourishing destiny. But I think it's not only the application of the methods, but it's also then kind of bringing an awareness of those principles into the context of the treatment. And so, for instance, every acupuncture point on the body, a lot of people might think of them as like, oh, this point is large intestine 4, but that point has a name, and that name is called joining of the valleys. And a valley is a Taoist symbol of receptivity, but at the same time as well. So when we think about this as being a major point on the large intestine meridian and the ability to receive, but also the ability to remain empty, large intestine not only implying the colon, the organ in the body, but even our ability to grasp things and to form things and extract nutrients from things that might not seem that useful, and then be able to let go of the things that we don't need anymore. You know, there's a lot there that can be discussed, and we don't even necessarily need to put a needle in that point. We can even just presence that point and speak of its vibrational dynamics, and then all of a sudden the energy is shifting, the treatment has happened.
That's a fascinating perspective. I know that you have a great love for the structure and function of the human body, and that that there is that relationship of the microcosm of the body and the macrocosm of the cosmos. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I think that's really what drew me to Chinese medicine to begin with, because the first thing I did after graduating high school was I went through massage therapy school. And you know, I grew up in Miami, Florida. I graduated from public school in Miami, Florida, and when I was done, I was ready to never learn anything again. And you know, fortunately, my mom came in like 5 a.m. the day after graduation and was like, "Welcome to the first day of the rest of your life. How are you going to pay rent?" You know, and so I had a friend who graduated the year before, and she had gone through massage therapy school and you know, and really loved it, and it was life changing for her. And I did work job, body worker, and I was familiar with that world. You know, I grew up going to osteopaths and naturopaths and things. And so when I enrolled in massage therapy school, it was the first time that I was really, you know, in a long time that I was having an experience of, you know, learning can be really fascinating and fun. And it doesn't have to be a battle between the teacher and the students like it was when I was in high school. And learning about the body specifically, you know, being 18 years old and just kind of just really starting to form my own ideas about what the universe was and how to engage with it. As I was learning about the body, I felt like that was giving me a template for understanding the macrocosm. And so, and I knew that I didn't want to just stop at massage therapy. I wanted to continue to learn more. And so when I was looking at the different traditions of medicine, when I came across Chinese medicine and saw that really its foundation is based upon understanding the dynamics of the macrocosm and understanding that those same dynamics exist in the microcosm, and it's about establishing balance and harmony between the two. I thought, well, you know, here's a whole system of medicine that's 1,000 years old that has already mapped out where I'm kind of just starting to go myself. So rather than try to figure it out on my own, I'll just learn from all the masters who came before.
Awesome. How do you continue to learn and grow and hone your experience and craft?
Well, that was another thing that drew me to Chinese medicine, you know, just because it is so vast. And I mean, you could spend your whole life just studying the methodology of acupuncture or the system of acupuncture, or you could spend your whole life just doing herbs or just doing Qigong. So I knew that I would never get bored, and you know, it's impossible to drink the ocean, so might as well just dive in. And so really, ever since I've graduated, I've just kind of I've really had a kind of passion for seeking out the living masters who are practicing this medicine, because again, you know, these classics, a lot of them were written hundreds or thousands of years ago. And so to find people who are currently engaged with the medicine, not only in an intellectual, abstract and deep understanding of the medicine, but also with a very robust clinical practice as well, you know, there's not a whole lot of those on the world. And so, you know, to find them and then to study from them is definitely something that I've pursued pretty intensely, and I continue to do so. So I think it's seeking out those teachers again who are kind of like the, you know, the scholar shaman and then, reading what they write or attending classes that they teach. That's something that I'm doing all the time. And it's really, I think, what keeps me fresh, because being here in Durango, we can sometimes be a little isolated. And so to be able to meet these teachers, and also to be in a classroom with colleagues, with people who are also drawn to these same teachers, that's also very inspiring and invigorating. And, to hear where they're at and where their leading edge is, and what they're learning and what's kind of turning them on. I think that's definitely a way that I stay inspired and continue to learn.
Can you talk a little bit more about Qigong and the Liu family lineage that you have been taught and that you teach?
Sure. Yeah, and so Qigong is really a branch of Chinese medicine. I feel like it's the active part of the medicine. You can come in and have a treatment with me, and we can talk, and then the person can lay down on the table, and I can do my assessment and do my treatment, which has its place and has its functions. But I feel like that's just half of the picture, and the other half is empowering people to be able to really take their healthcare into their own hands as well. And so, Qigong, it's not only movement and breathing practices, but it's really just a practice of in-depth self-awareness and being able to understand some of the physiology of Chinese medicine, and then have a direct experience of that through some of these Qigong practices. I think that's what empowers people to not have to come in for treatments. They can make their own medicine all the time. And, and then the Liu family lineage, this is, I study with several different Qigong teachers, but the Liu family lineage is probably what I consider to be my primary teachers. It's a brother and a sister from China, and they come from a family that pretty much, everyone has been practitioners of Qigong as far back as it goes. And so I think that their forms are really beautiful, and their connection with Chinese medicine and with Qigong feels very authentic to me. And so I think it's great just to kind of hang out with them and be in their presence. And then also some of the forms that they teach, I feel like, are really, at sometimes they can be really advanced, but they're also just very deep, and they have very profound effects. And I've experienced those effects myself, and I've seen those benefits and those effects come through other people. And then I also studied with other teachers as well, who I've sought out, in part because some of the forms from the Liu family lineage can be a little, again, a little advanced. And so it's also nice to have some more beginner level kind of things that are a little more accessible for people to kind of ease into before we get into some of the more in-depth and advanced styles.
What can you tell people about what their experience would be like if they came for a session or a Qigong session? I mean, sometimes people they have a little bit of angst when they hear acupuncture because they're afraid of needles, but maybe just, give a little bit of an overview of what the experience may be like for somebody coming to see you.
Sure. Yeah, and I've often felt like acupuncture would benefit by changing the name of the needle to something else. Because I think in the West, when you hear needle, you think of like getting a shot, and that's not at all what acupuncture needles are like. The acupuncture needle inserted can actually be, most often, is really quite painless, So there's that. I think that's one thing maybe offer to people who are a little nervous about that. And usually when people say, does it hurt? I often would ask them, well, does a chiropractic adjustment hurt? Or does a deep massage hurt? Like, not really. You feel something, there's an experience of something, but it wouldn't be pain. And one of my teachers had a nice way of saying it. He said, the acupuncture needle sensation, it's not ow, it's more like, ooh. So that's one thing I would offer. And then as far as just kind of an overall experience of what people would expect, I guess to sum it up, I would say probably most likely what's going to happen is an experience of what I refer to as an expanded state. And so when we think about, having, like, putting the hands on someone, or even just having an in-depth conversation where there is a deep connection that's happening, or even being deeply connected with yourself, like bringing the focus of the mind into the body and focusing on the breath, what that does is that amplifies our field of awareness, our field of consciousness. We're bringing more attention into the things that are already going on. So we already are in our bodies, we're already breathing, we're already thinking. If we bring intention to that, we're amplifying the field. And amplified fields lead to expanded states. And expanded states are places in our body are less firmly entrenched. So whether that's like a physical postural pattern of standing like this, and then you get into an expanded state and suddenly it's easier to feel more relaxed and it's easier to breathe a little belief system or anything. Breathing expanded states are going to soften all of those patterns, so they're less, we can have potential experience, oh, I can stand in different ways, which then quite literally changes my perspective of what I'm looking at. And then that gives me opens me up to the possibility of just experiencing myself and the universe around me in a different way. And so I would say, that's kind of what comes from any kind of treatment or a Qigong experience, is an expanded state, which again, I think just opens us up to greater potentials.
I know that it would be hard to kind of pick one thing, but maybe just feel into this question for a minute. Like, what is it that you love the most about what you do?
We're freezing up.
There's a little break.
I think we lost you for a second, Oley. Maybe we'll just take a second and have you come back on to finish that answer.
I think we're having some internet connection.
Yeah, I can hear you, but the pictures are frozen. Oh, I think we're back.
Okay. So did you hear the question of what it is that you most love about what you do?
Ah, okay, yeah. Well, I think two parts of it. I think one of the things that that I really love about what I do is that it's not a job that I go to and then I leave. It's kind of like a way of being. It's just all the time, and I think I love that. I think that's one of the things that drew me also to Chinese medicine, because there's been a lot of time in my life where I feel like I would be totally content just living up in foggy mountains and just being a hermit, a mountain hermit in that way. But at the same time, I want to be engaged in the world as well. I don't just want to, abandon everything. And so I feel like, the practice of Chinese medicine is really, it's really a spiritual cultivation practice, and it's ongoing all the time. So I think I really love that about that. And I also really love and appreciate being able to interact with people in this way, and have the conversations that I'm able to have with people, and to get to experience each person who comes in here, because like the microcosm and the macrocosm, we are all universes in and of ourselves with so much depth and so much just that goes on infinitely. And so just to be able to witness that on a regular basis is, I feel honored and humbled by that.
So if you could go back in time and offer your younger self some advice, what would that be?
That's a funny question, because I feel like if anything were to change, I don't know if I would be where I am now. And, I don't know if I would want that to be different. I think probably I would probably tell my younger self to start stretching earlier. And like, keep your hamstrings loose, because as you get older, we become less flexible and it's harder to regain it once we've lost it.
Good advice.
And yeah, and so now let's fast forward 10 or 20 years, and you're looking back on your life, and what is it that you would describe as your greatest achievement or your greatest contribution, either to the community or to humanity at large?
I think that would probably be, well, I guess, my hope would be to continue to have a relationship with this medicine, and to be able to embody it and to share it with people. One of the great benefits I feel that Chinese medicine offers is a very clear way of providing a context for what's going on. There's something that's known as the system of correspondences in Chinese medicine, and I think most people are probably familiar with the concept of the 5 elements. And each one of those elements shows up in all of the different phenomena that manifest. And so sometimes when it seems like, what is going on and how can we make any sense of it, I feel like Chinese medicine has a really beautiful way of providing a context. And then we can use that context to create meaning, and out of that meaning to then find value. And I feel like, a life without value, it then becomes really hard to cultivate virtue. And I feel like without virtue, it's hard to attain much of anything. And so I feel like if I can embody this tradition of wisdom and communicate that and share that with people, I think then if I can do that, then that will have been a great service.
So to follow up on what you're saying, then, what are some of the insights about sort of this unique time in history and things that are happening? What's the context that Chinese medicine is providing to sort of help us grasp what's happening now in the world?
Sure. Well, and for each individual that can be different, but I would think as the collective, I think one of the things that's going on, in every illness there's the seed of a medicine. And I feel like, the medicine that we're all kind of coming into contact with now is the fact that we live within a bigger context than ourselves. It's not that for, the past 200, 300 years or so, kind of the scientific worldview that nature is just this inert, inanimate thing, as opposed to a living organism itself that we exist within, and that it's bigger than us. I think we're starting to see the effects of maintaining that idea for too long, and that we've gotten out of balance from that. And so if we can understand that the planet itself is an organism, and that we live on the planet and we have to live within balance and harmony with that environment, if not, and there is imbalance, then things are going to come along to try to restore balance. It's like, I feel like this virus might just be the immune system of the planet doing it. Just like if we have something that's in our lungs, or we're eating something that isn't agreeing with us, we're going to create an immune response, like spike a fever, boil the bugs out of our blood. It's like, I feel like, talk about climate change, that's like a fever. We've had, like storms and floods and wildfires, and I feel like all of that is part of an immune response, an attempt to restore balance, and it hasn't gotten our attention enough. So just as the body will do, if you don't notice a low-grade immune response, like maybe a little rash on your skin, then maybe you might have to start developing something more severe to really cause you to look at how you're doing things and to change how you're doing things and to get more in balance with things. And so I feel like this is really causing us to stop and look at how we're doing things, and can we do things differently that can put us more into balance and harmony with the environment of the planet and with the environment that we exist in with other human beings as well. I mean, it seems like it's pretty it's pretty out of balance right now. And again, sometimes we need to go out of balance in order to find balance. But I think that's part of what's going on. And also I feel like, you know, in mainstream modern medicine, it's typically about managing diseases, and diseases are infinite, and we can exhaust ourselves fighting all kinds of disease, or we can cultivate health. So, you know, I think that's also part of what's going on here as well. Like the idea of hygiene, of washing your hands, or the word hygiene comes from this Greek phrase, which means the art of health. I feel like if we focus more on cultivating health, on eating well, on taking care of our bodies, on moving and breathing in a good way, on interacting with each other in a good way, and cultivating health, then disease won't even show up. There's no need for disease to show up to try to right our ship, because we're living in balance to begin with. So I feel like that's one perspective on what's going on.
Thank you for those insights. That was really amazing. We need more voices like yours in this time.
Exactly. And for people that, you know, you had mentioned earlier the 5 elements, and that is a core principle, but here in the US, maybe some people aren't familiar with what those 5 elements are and what they may represent, and how, you know, how can they become more in touch with how that interacts in the micro and macrocosm in the world.
Yeah. And that's where I feel like, you know, even if we're not aware of them or we can't name them, they're happening anyways. So again, that's where I feel like Chinese medicine has this beautiful vocabulary for describing what's already going on. You know, like, I mean, we could say the earth is our body, that's our ground. And you know, and then we have the wood, which is the part of ourselves that grows up. It's like the seed has the blueprint for the whole tree in it. And there's that part of us that's creative, that wants to go out and explore and expand the way that trees grow and reach into the sky, you know. And there is that metal element, which in nature, all things that are metal have an intrinsic value, like gold and silver and diamonds, and all of these things are also very conductive. And so we can think about, you know, how our lungs relate to the metal element and how that conducts the inside and the outside with each other. And it's also our own inherent sense of what's valuable and worthwhile. And the fire element, as far as the spirit and communication and, you know, like technology, it's like a little fire that we're all carrying in our hands with our phones. You know, and the water element, as far as just that depth within us and that deep potential, that when we go into stillness, just like water, and you drop down underneath, even though the surface has a lot of waves, just a couple inches or feet underneath, and there's this still depth that you can just drop into and access this potential that exists within our DNA, this evolutionary potential of everything that is and potential for things to go forward in the future. So we have it all in us all the time. We just sometimes don't have the words for it. And again, one of the things I love about Chinese medicine, you describe these things to people and everyone always says, oh yeah, right. Like they're remembering something. It's not like they're hearing it for the first time. It's like a remembering deep inside. And I think that's wonderful.
I also think you have a uniquely eloquent way of helping people see how Chinese medicine creates that context. That that's part of your, I think, unique gift to the world, Oley. And I wanted to say, you know, you've written several articles for E.P.I.C, usually about the Chinese New Year. So can you talk for a minute about Chinese astrology and how that plays into that whole context of, you know, their ability to create that container for looking at what's going on in the world?
Sure. Yeah. So, you know, with Chinese astrology, there's 12 animals of the zodiac, and there's the 5 elements. And so usually the way it goes is there's, you know, an element will persist for 2 years. So there's a yang and a yin aspect of the element. So for instance, this year is the year of the metal rat. And next year, it'll be ox. And so, and then it will go on to the next element, which would be water. So every year you have a different animal. Every 2 years you have a different element. And each animal relates to a whole, again, it's like this is a symbol science. And so a symbol is a way of crystallizing whole encyclopedia's worth of information. One, so when you say like the rat, that's a symbol for a whole lot of different things. And some of the simple things that go along with the rats are clever. They're very quick moving, they can change direction very fast. They're actually the first animal of the 12 animals because they're so clever. Because there's a funny myth in cosmology talks about how when all the animals were going to be assigned their places on the zodiac, the mouse told the cat that, hey, they're going to meet at 2 o'clock to do the arranging. But it was actually at noon. And so that's why the cat didn't get on the zodiac, and that's why the cat chases the mouse always. And then also that, as all the animals were rushing to get placed, the mouse was able to jump on the ox's back and run up to the tip of its horn so that it got there first. So, and then the mouse also relates to the gallbladder meridian. The gallbladder meridian relates to Xiaoyang, which is half interior, half exterior, and it goes on and on. So there's again, this whole encyclopedia's worth of information about a rat. And then you take that and you couple it with the metal element, which is another encyclopedia's worth of information crystallized in this symbol. And you put those two together, and then you have a certain dynamic, which we can then, out of that, we can then see what are some of the trends that are going on, or if certain trends are happening, then we can look at, well, how can we find meaning within that? And, and that's the other thing also to keep in mind is that, symbols are symbols, and we're creating meaning as well, and the symbols are not the actual things. So it's kind of like, it can be like a Rorschach test as well, where we have these different symbols that have all these different meanings, and then we're looking at it and we're using that to create a meaning for ourselves, which then actually gives us an insight into who we are and how we actually make meaning. And so there's, again, there's layers and layers and layers, and it's best, one of my teachers always said, hold it all with an open hand. Don't get too firmly grasped to any particular idea about how you think it might be. It just, again, it's like how you think it is. Let's look at that. And what does that say about you? And then, yeah, the onion goes on forever.
It's a fascinating perspective that not everyone has the opportunity to experience. And I agree with Lori, just the way in which you articulate these principles and practices and put them into use, I think is of great benefit to everyone that gets to experience time with you and humanity in general. So thank you so much for coming on and spending this time with us. And any last things you'd like to impart to the listeners?
Well, I would say the last things maybe during this time, especially, when a lot of us are hunkered down and maybe not venturing out as much and maybe feeling a little anxious or unsure about what's going on, I would just want to offer to everyone that we have so much more control or ability than we maybe think we might. And I just want everyone to feel empowered and to know that we can make our own medicine, and that's the thing to do now. And if we're worried about our immune systems or about getting sick or anything like this, it's like just by slowing down, by taking a moment to feel the sensation of our bodies, and whether that's if we're sitting on something or standing, just what does that feel like? What does it feel to be aligned within gravity, or what the Chinese would say, aligned between heaven and earth? Just what does that feel like? Taking a nice deep breath into the shape of that sensation and allowing that to be the focus of the mind, even if it's for just a couple moments, that is turning on our own internal healing resources. That's turning on our own internal elixir. And in doing that, allowing us to relax, allowing the nervous system to go into rest and digest, into parasympathetic function, and coming out of sympathetic function, so that we can rest and digest, so that our muscles can relax, so that our lymph and circulatory systems can function optimally. we can do that anytime we need to. It doesn't cost anything. You don't have to schedule an appointment. You don't have to leave your house. You can manage your own healthcare anytime, any day, for free. All we have to do is just do it. And so I would just encourage everyone to do it frequently. And that's what this is all about. And the more people are doing that and then interacting with each other from that place, how much better would the world be? I mean, I think, again, we have a lot more power than we give ourselves credit for.
Yes, we do. And just let people know how they can get in touch with you. And we know that you're offering online Qigong classes. So why don't you say a little bit about that?
Sure. I do them every week, Wednesdays, 11 a.m. Their class is usually about an hour and 15 minutes long. If anybody's interested in participating in the class, all they have to do is go to my website, acupuncture.com. And at the bottom of the first page, you can sign up for an email, and or you can sign up, I guess, to my email list. And I send out an email every Tuesday with the invite to the online class. Classes are by donation, so donations are never required and appreciated if you make them. And the classes are also recorded. So if you can't make a class, you can always send me an email through the website as well, and I can always just send a recording of the class also. So there's that, available to everybody.
Thank you so much, Oley. We really appreciate your time, your wisdom, your expertise here with us today. And again, in case you didn't get it, it is the way to connect with Oley is at openheartacupuncture.com. And for more information about E.P.I.C, you can go to epicmag.org. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much. This was really fun.
Hey. Namaste.
Yeah. Right.